many, or should I say if you have taken the time out to venture down to the King Memorial, you will find inscripted and carved on the memorial as well as the stone memorable quotes from Dr. King. I would like to think that people of a certain age all have in their temporal lobe a memory or quote that Dr. King spoke. Or maybe you don't have a quote, but you have an event, a story. Like the event that took place in his life in 1958, almost 10 years later is mentioned in his famous sermon, or one of his famous sermons. In Mason Temple, Memphis, Tennessee, April the 3rd, where he gave his final farewell on the eve of his death. And he preached, "I've been to the mountaintop" sermon. In that sermon, Dr. King recalls of an event of his history, an event that actually took place in 1958. 1958, his first book was published, A Stride Towards Freedom, the Montgomery Boycott. He went to Bloomstein's department store in Harlem, New York. A young lady saw him doing autographs and walked up and asked him, "Are you Martin King?" And once he identified and confirmed his identity, she pulled out an envelope opener made of steel and pierced him in the chest. Somewhere nearby the aorta vein, the vein that pushes blood through the body, major vein. And it took 2 hours of surgery to turn the infliction into affliction. And so after the surgery, Dr. King had some recovery time, and he decided to open up some mail. And he said in that mail there was a letter he remembered from a ninth grader named Jean Kapler. And Jean Kapler wrote, and he quoted her. He remembered her saying, I'm a white girl, it shouldn't matter, from White Plains High School. She said, "And I heard about your ordeal or your struggle or your suffering, but the report said if you had sneezed, you would have died. And I'm simply writing to say, I'm so happy that you didn't sneeze." An infliction that will become an infliction, a scar, a spiritual scar that Dr. King could never forget, because every time he stood bare-chested in front of a mirror, there upon his chest was a scar that hung like a badge on an officer. He could not forget it. But as he looked at it, he didn't remember it as his scar. He saw it as a spiritual scar. His scar was not because of who he is, but whom he was working for. That he discovered that his scar was there because of his connection with God and his mission for God. To build a dam to stop the gate from flowing of injustice, and to build a gateway so that judgment could roll like righteous, like a mighty stream in righteousness. And every time he looked at it, it was a reminder that God was using him. That's what Paul said. Paul said, the devil put a thorn in my flesh. May not be visible, but something that I feel every time God gets closer, like an electric shock. It may not have been a visible scar like Martin's, but it was a scar. It may have been a limp that I couldn't get rid of. My vision was impaired. I couldn't see like I used to. But nonetheless, it was a scar, not because of who I am, but who I'm working for. I wonder if you have any spiritual scars that we're so close to God that we find ourselves in a war, that we have ourselves in a place of discomfort, uncomfort, and we're saying that the reason why I have this setback and this struggle is not because of who I am, but whom I'm connected to. Spiritual scar does not derive from you, but it comes because of God. Paul wasn't tricked. Paul, as soon as he felt it, he said, ain't nobody but the devil. Because he knew the devil's M.O. That was what he did. If I just could recite something for you, you remember when Nehemiah was trying to build the wall, to build the people, the devil sent an army to try to stop him. When Job was testified as one who walked in righteousness, the devil begged God, let me have him. Even Jesus, when he walked the earth and was born, Herod looked for him, and when Herod couldn't find him, the devil met him in the desert. And now Paul, who is the apostle, the chief apostle, is now the same Satan that tried to stop other ministries is trying to stop his. Are y'all with me? If you're not, let me help you this way. Paul realized something. Paul says, God had done something for Paul that only God could do. Paul, read the whole chapter. He has sent Paul into the third heaven. And I said, how can I explain this? Paul was invited to a board meeting that the devil couldn't go to. Paul was at the table where God was present. And Paul said, I heard secrets that is unlawful for man to even know. Paul says, the devil got mad because I was privileged to be in a place with God that he could not go. And Satan got mad. And I want to share this because the reason why Paul knows it's Satan because of what the affliction did. But he also knew it had to be Satan because it was connected to his spiritual life and not his personal life. But Paul looks at it and he says, ain't nobody but the devil. Now, I want to be clear that Paul didn't use the devil like we do. We blame the devil for everything. And sometimes the problem that you are encountering, the setback and your suffering, has nothing to do with the devil. It has everything to do with you. That it wasn't the devil that made you do it. It was the alcohol. It wasn't the devil that made you late, mismanagement of time. It ain't the devil that makes you broke. It's the mismanagement of your money. It's not the devil that made you sick. It was a habit you should have never embraced. We're always trying to blame the devil when it's time for us to be accountable and responsible for our own actions. And he said, no, that's not spiritual. That's carnal stuff. That's your mess that now you need God to step in and try to fix for you. And he said, but there's something going on there. He said, and the devil saw what was happening, and he put a thorn in my flesh to buffet me. And this is what's important, that he said, buffet me, because he's giving you a testimony of what the devil's limitations. The devil did not put a thorn in Paul to buffet him, to afflict him. He wanted to kill him, and he wanted to bury him. But he could not kill him and could not bury him because God was with him. And sometimes you have to understand that you might go through something, you may fall down, but you're going to get up, because if it's a spiritual scar, God is with you. But I've come in here to help you to get a praise on. That's why you should thank your enemy for some of the suffering that you go through, because your enemy is a reminder that you and God must be on the same page. You must be traveling the right road. Come on in here, because the devil ain't going to spend his arsenal on people he already got. Only those who love the Lord and are children of God. But Paul said, I'm convinced the present day ain't going to compared to what the Lord has prepared for me. Keep on pushing. Hey! Put some grace on it. And then he said, he started thinking. And Paul, you know, when you're suffering, you start thinking. You try to figure God out. And Paul said, wait a minute. He knew something about God. God has a way that he can take a negative and turn it into a positive. He can take your curses and make them your blessings. Don't make me go old school. Test your testimony or mess your miracle. Don't make me do that. And so he says, he says, wait a minute. And he probably went back in his Rolodex, because God is famous for he got fame on that. Remember, he took Joseph's tests and trials and made his dream come true. And he took Sarah's old wound and made it young again and made her mother. He's good at turning things around. Y'all ain't got it yet, do you? Let me help you. You down there broken-hearted because he or she done left you. And what mama said? Mama, take that curse and make it a blessing. That wasn't the one for you. God got another. Wait a minute. You done lost your job, didn't get the job. You weeping and crying, and here come mama. When God closed one door, he gonna open up another. You see Paul said, wait a minute. This curse could be a blessing. So Paul is dealing with himself. Paul is having a wrestling match with himself, because Paul understands he's been privileged in many ways. His privilege was, it's a privilege to be able to go into the third heavens and be at the board table where only a select few can go. But he also has an impressive resume. He's the smartest of the apostles. He's educated. He's been to school. He's studied everything. He's a dual threat. He's a Jew and a Gentile. And he's the popular preacher. He can't sit down while somebody calls and come to my church and preach. Gene Carmen wrote a song, Don't Let It Go to Your Head. And Paul was sitting there talking about, he said, even though I would desire to glory, that's what he said. He said, I would love to brag, tell you what the Lord has done for me. And y'all know some people you can't bless. You bless them, and all of a sudden they get too good for you. Let me make it simple, because I want to get out of here. Got you a new car, and you used to bring the hoopty to church. Now you drive by. I don't have to go no further, do I? Got you a new boo, can't get to church on Sunday because Saturday night you party too hard. I'm just trying to help you. You prayed for him and prayed for her. Now you can't get you to come back to the altar. Can't bless some people. It's in church. I've seen it in church. Church, poor people get rich. Now they too rich for your poor church. They change church not because they're looking for God, but they need a church to match their status. Can I get a witness here? They done got blessed now. They too new to be able to listen to your conservative traditional preaching. That they need a church that matches their address and their new income and their new level of dress. Ain't nothing about Jesus. They done got blessed, and now they can't go into your church because your church that raised them and taught them about God, gave them the affirmation and confirmation that God loved them. All of a sudden, they done got so high and mighty and blessed, they go where they can be seen rather than to go where God can be heard. Preach, Wes. Paul says, I realize that I'm on the threshold, that God has elevated me. And rather than use what the devil gave to curse me, God used it to bless me. Y'all ain't got it yet. That what was meant to destroy me, God is now using it to humble me. That the reason why I got this thorn in my side is that I don't go above myself, think more highly of myself than I ought to. And so what he did, he gave me an affliction to remind me that I'm always going to need the Lord. I never make so much money that I can't bow down. I never live so rich that I don't need him. I'm never so smart to outthink him. I'm never so cute that I don't need him. That he said, the Lord has a way that he gave me a thorn not to curse me, but to keep my feet on the ground and remind me I need him. Hey! I'm almost done. And so he's playing. He says the scar, spiritual scar, is a scar. So I always rely on God. But even though he can say the burden seemed a blessing, he did what most non-believers and believers do. He said, I see it's a blessing, but I don't want the burden. And he does what we do. He prayed. And you know what we do? Well, I don't care how much we're in love with God. If we don't want the pain of the burden to serve God, now all of a sudden we get a prayer life. Ain't prayed since your last problem. And if you do, it's a drive-by. You might as well just say, Lord, just checking in. But let me tell you something. Paul gave a drive-by prayer in measure. You know what? This is the problem with corporate prayer. Paul teaches us now how to pray. And when you're going to pray, this is how you should pray. Corporate prayer messes church folk up. Because we stand here and we have our organized thoughts. We have introduction. Long. We call him who he is and what he's done. And then we get down to something we need. And now you got people in church that when you ask them to pray, they can't pray in public. And they even struggle in private. Because us preachers that stood up like the Pharisees and gave these long dissertations in prayer, making prayer difficult for you to do. Paul says when you pray to God, get to the point. Come on in here. Why are you going through all that? Just get right down to the point. You know, don't be sitting there. Because if you don't, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna try that introduction prayer. Oh God, you are just so holy, and I just adore you. But in the back of your mind, you want to get to the point. Listen, let me tell you what Paul's prayer was. Lord, remove this thorn. And if you need me to update it, in Jesus' name. Now, y'all said, no, he didn't. If you think, even Jesus, when he got to the Garden of Gethsemane, read it. It wasn't a long prayer, one verse. Lord, if it be your will to remove this bitter cup, do it. But nonetheless, not my will, but your will be done. Straight to the point. Because God said, ain't no need you telling me no lie. You ain't talked to me in so long. You don't know me as an honorable God. So you say, well, how? And if you don't know what to pray for, if you wake up some morning and you say, I don't have no prayer, then you do have one. Help me, Lord. Because you always got something to pray for. Just get to the point. Now I can hear some of them prayers now. Lord, I would give you an introduction, but Pastor West said, get straight to the point. Help me, Lord. But then he says something, and he says, then he tells you how long you should pray over a situation. He said, I talked to him thrice. In other words, I said the same prayer 3 times. Lord, remove this thorn in Jesus' name. Now, it's not how many times he said it. It's knowing when to stop. You stop praying after you heard God answer. That's really what he said. I went to God 3 times and he answered me. Come on in here. Because some of us pray too long. Not because God didn't answer, but you want to go back and ask him, is that what you said? That we have a problem when God's answer is not the one we want. And now we start talking about, God, I need you to talk to me. And he already told you, no. Hold on to it. Keep it. Walk with it. y'all not with me. Ain't that right? Y'all keep praying. And then if you keep walking in it and nothing happens, rather than say, God said this, you'll give up on God and say, ain't no God. He ain't talking to me. No, prayer is not about getting what you want. Prayer is about knowing God is with you. And when you pray, he may not give me the answer I want, but let me know you're present, that you walk with me and you talk with me. That's what I need in prayer. When I come home, my wife's happy. Not because I give her what she wants, but I'm home. I'm trying to help somebody. Go home. I tell couples all the time, that if you're home, it makes everybody happy. You ain't got to look at them. My wife called me the other day. Where are you? I'm in the basement. Bye. Just be home. And that's why, God, when I pray, I want to know that you're home. And this is what God said to him. Now, Paul, I ain't going to remove that thorn, but I'm going to throw some grace on it. Make it clear. I'm not going to take away your pain and suffering. I'm going to throw some grace on it. Because it's a spiritual scar to keep you humble. It's a spiritual scar to confirm your call. It's a spiritual scar to keep you in touch. And sometimes people can be, not Paul, but an example. Sometimes when God removes the scar that the devil gave you, you go back into the devil's camp. And the Lord says, no, I'm going to throw some grace on it. I didn't ask my wife, could I tell the story, but I asked her this. My wife was a cheerleader in high school and in college. My wife was a cheerleader that did all them flips. You know, the one cheerleader that just, and they put them on screen. But the knees are paying for it now. And an athlete can tell you that. When you play ball, especially football, or play for a while, or you running and jumping, but at some point, your knees gonna catch you. A whole lot of people get new knees. I'm sorry, Tashi, I forgot about your knee. Dave, you got a new knee too? Okay. But that's why we don't have no metal detectors in church. I mean, the knees. I'm sorry. But my wife doing real good. I mean, you know, and I'm always amazed at her operation. Her knees really hurt at home, but when she get in public, I don't see no signs of pain. That's true, Earl. When we get out of the car at the house, you know, oh Lord. But when she come to church, she just jump right on out. But I know her knees hurt. But her knees have hurt so bad, there's signs that it was swell. That's called the inflammation. Inflammation that said it. And it can be so bad that you can tell when it's bad. She started talking about going to the doctor. And the doctor offered her an injection. Let me see if I can pronounce it. Platelet-rich plasma. Am I good, Cayman? Got to be more careful. A PRP injection. And you medical people don't like to tell the truth all the time. Because what medication really does, it masks the pain. So they tried to say PRP don't mask the pain. But I read up on it, and they told her they exaggerated. This is what they said. It when they inject it, it regenerates the tissue. Sound like it's doing something. And they'll say it, don't mask it. And then what it does, it allows the knee to function, and it reduces the inflammation. And they said it's not a mask, but this is what they said, and this is where they contradict themselves. It just lasts longer. In other words, they would give her, she didn't take it yet, and she ain't gonna take it, because God knows if I have to run, she can't catch me. She ain't gonna get it. And so what that injection does, it doesn't heal like most medication doesn't. It masks it enough that even if you still have pain, you can function. Y'all ain't got it yet? The Lord says, I'm not going to remove your affliction. I'm not going to take away the pain that you feel. But I'm going to inject and put some grace on it, that I'm going to give you enough strength by my grace that you can keep on preaching and keep on serving and keep on doing God's will. So maybe then asking God to heal everything that's wrong, ask God to put some grace on it, because grace has the ability to give you the power to keep on keeping on, because grace is that mighty. Don't you know grace? Grace died on a Friday. Grace got up early Sunday morning. Grace made a statement, I got all power in my hand. Grace got a name. His name is Jesus. And Jesus has said his name sits above every name. So whatever you're going through, whatever your spiritual scar is, put some Jesus on it, and the Lord will keep you going. Say yeah. Say yeah. Because only grace can fix our spiritual problems. Woo! Woo! Y'all hear me? Ask God to sprinkle a little grace on your problem. Somebody pray. I just ran out of time. Put that grace on there. And Paul says, this is what grace does. When I'm weak, His grace makes me strong. And so I celebrate my spiritual scars, because it's those scars that makes Jesus known to me. It's those wounds. Late Gardner Taylor said it this way. Grace is when you said, if I didn't have a problem, I wouldn't know He could solve them. And if I didn't have my troubles, I wouldn't know I had a testimony. Grace. Amazing grace. Can you imagine that? Not taking away the pain, but giving you the power to endure it and keep on keeping on. Amazing grace.